Hi, everybody. This is Kenna. I am so happy to be with you all for this stream today. We have Harish from OutDeBox joining us now. Um, Welcome, Harish. It's such a pleasure to have you for this session today. I'll let you introduce yourself quickly. I think you have some great credentials and background in filmmaking. If you could just quickly talk about your background and your experience, please.
Okay. Thanks, Kina. It's been a pleasure being on the platform today. First of all, what I've been doing over the last 20 years has been floating around with the idea of making films, advertisements, commercials, and sort. So, for a quick background, I did my engineering, then did my master's in mass communication, finished that, and then I headed off to Bombay, where I worked a bit under Prahlad Kakar, then Kunal Vijayakar, then Abbas Mustan, uh, trying out all those different things. Then I was doing documentaries, corporate films. I moved over to Chennai. Then I worked on a couple of animation films for Penta Media. Then we did some lot of documentaries for Doordarshan and stuff like that. Traveled all over the country. Then I was with Reliance, part of their new initiatives division, doing video content, radio. Then the brothers split, and post that we had to move into some division. I moved into radio. Then I set up Big FM Chennai, and I was heading programming for Big. And post that, I came out. I started our own production house called Hypnotics, and we've been making uh, different kinds of video contents, ranging from corporate films, music videos, television content, animation, and been having a good time, having fun, and enjoying the journey. So that's where I've been and what I've been doing over the last 20 years.
Amazing, man. Amazing. I mean, I've seen some of your work and it's so inspiring. I was so happy to see that you've decided to launch an academy. So, what was the inspiration behind it? How come from filmmaking into, say, education, training, skill development? What was the transition like and what was the inspiration?
Yeah. The idea to do training and get into training has been there for quite some time. Though I tried doing bits and pieces here and there, training a bunch of students here and there. But what I really was always finding was lacking the time to really take out and then set up a course and get into the physical format of doing it. Because I always felt video production had to be all the more physical, where people are sitting, doing things together, and that was what I was always had seen that. But then what happened was, with the whole lockdown and other things happening, I was spending quite some time, because most of our productions were not happening, shoots were cancelled, and I also speak as a professional speaker. Most of my outbound training, engagement, all that was also not happening. So I said, how do I put my time into more productive use? And I remember we getting into a call, and then I felt, yes, this is probably the right time to go ahead. Strange part was, though we had a production house, we had a team and all that, but at this point of time when I actually wanted to launch the course, I didn't have anyone. But the beauty part of it was, the platform, the assurances that you guys gave me, all made it wonderful for me to go ahead and launch the course. And I didn't even think that in such a short span of time I can actually launch a course.
That's so nice to hear, man. I'm so glad that we were able to kind of be a small part in the journey to education. Now I know that videos are the primary method or the mode that people learn these days. It's as if it's overtaken the books or anything else that you've seen ever in the history of any kind of other media. So, what
Right.
is you think the key for an instructor or a trainer to start thinking about their video production? What could be the beginning point? What is the first point they have to take care of and to think about?
Right. A very, very important question that you asked me right now, because I find the need to make this course also arose from a lot what you asked from. Because when I looked upon a lot of courses online, and which was kind of accessible and available to people, either I saw people made very mediocre or low end. They would just put just a bunch of slides and some computer recorded voice that would just take it through, or there were one or two instances of high end video production course, but then they were priced really high. Um, then there was this huge gap, and looking at this gap is when I felt there is this huge opportunity to make content and videos. And for anybody who's making video content for themselves, I looked at a few criteria, like what you would look at, like in the movies you would hear roll sound, camera, lights and action. So this 3 4 keywords became the keyword for the whole course, because so if you're making a great course, ensure first and foremost your sound is clear and crisp, because you cannot afford to have an audio which is very bad. Most of the time it's kind of distorted, or like with too much of echo and reverb. You cannot have that. Next, you want to ensure that you look clear, so it can't be just some tube lights right at your background and behind your head and stuff like that. You have to have a decent enough lit setup for yourself, and this is very much easy and possible. Having said this, it's not complicated. Then comes your camera. Today, right from your mobile phone, you might have a DSLR, but then you don't necessarily need a DSLR or a high-end webcam. You can just do stuff with your mobile phone itself. And these three become your base hardware idea of it. And finally is how you present yourself, the action part of it. And becomes you become the actor in terms of taking the course around. So right from your presence, in terms of your camera angle, look and feel, all that becomes important. So it's very ideal that one maintains these 3 4 criteria to have a great looking content. And then of course it comes into their depth of their content, or what they are the subject matter expert on.
Very true. I think the biggest point, or the most important point that anybody has to take care of, is the depth of content. And once you've got that right, I think everything else is secondary, which I agree with you, because I've seen some people doing fantastic job with average produced videos as well. But I know if the video is engaging, that kind of adds such a cherry on top of the cake of good content that you don't have any match for that. So thank you for kind of reiterating that fact. Now, what are the general challenges and issues that people usually face when they're trying to build content, even with these fancy mobile devices, great mics? What has been your experience, and how can they overcome them?
Oh yes, people kind of get kind of enamored by technology, ideas, and all those kinds of things. So people think that's a little complicated. Oh God, I'm not a techie. I don't think I can do this. How am I going to take and make the content when I don't know all this? And second, with the current scenario, you're not into access of most of the things around you. So it's like, hey, I can't go pick up a light, or I don't know what to do. I think you need to look around you in terms of finding resources and ideas. Today in India, if you see, people make content fixing their phone anywhere else. If you don't have a tripod, use a bunch of books, use it as a stand. If you don't have light, you have sunlight. How can you make use of sunlight around you to make it sound good? If you don't have a mic, find a nice silent space around your house or your bedroom or something, lock it down, and you might sound good. So it's about not getting caught with the limitations around you, but then making the most of what you have with you. And I think you can make great stuff if you keep that attitude in mind. And I think that's the largest and single most criteria to make great content.
No, I agree with you. One of the interesting facts here, let me add that we experimented with a lot of small gadgets, and we are always trying to hack the cost of equipment, because a lot of our content creators that come on the platform cannot afford fancy and costly equipment. So if you see me something wearing here, it's kind of a lapel mic, and we have experimented with devices that come for just about 700 Indian rupees. So you're looking at under $10, and they perform really well. I mean, actually, the one that I've mostly been using is a mic that comes under that price, and there are some really good local companies that make good stuff out there as well, available on Amazon. So thanks for highlighting that. I think it's beyond just cost. It's more about how they find the right choice for the equipment and aesthetics. Now, coming to aesthetics, this is an interesting question that we've always faced within our team and with a lot of content creators. So aesthetics are very subjective, right? I mean, something that looks good to me might not look good to you. Something like that looks good in Malaysia does not look good in India. I mean, the color sensibilities differ from place to place. In that scenario, what do you think? How can a content creator make sure that the content he's producing is aesthetically relevant globally or on a wider scale than normal?
Oh yes, very interesting question, because I would say, like, as content creators, you're always having this challenge to say what is right, especially if you're looking at a global market. And today you're making content onto a video platform, you're straight away global. It's no more restricted to the environment that you're in. So having a scenario like that, first and foremost, you need to be something which is not very jarring or disturbing. Certain very strong colors like red might be great in certain environments. In certain areas, red may not be. At the same time, if you're doing education content, you could have simple plain backgrounds or ones with slight simple textures. I think they are very neutrals, and going pastel shades, I think it kind of works across, I would say, globally. Most important, I think, being pleasing, talk a lot with your eyes and smile. I think that can make a lot of difference for you, and I think that will seal the deal.
That's an excellent suggestion, man, and I get it. I mean, it could only come from somebody like you. You've produced so many movies, and I believe you've also worked in animation. I've seen a lot of good work that you've produced in animated movies and used other mediums. Do you think they're relevant? Is that too expensive to utilize animation while a content creator is creating videos for instructional purposes, or is there a affordable individual based way to kind of utilize animation too?
Oh, today animation is no more the fancy era that we probably started on. Early days when we were doing film production, like, the film was fancy. So even getting access to a camera used to be difficult. Then animation was to even another league apart. But today, I'm telling you, like, my daughter is doing animation on her phone every day. I see every second person has access to so many free tools that you can do basic simple animation. Unless you're trying to make a avatar or an animated feature, we are talking about, if you're making course content, what is the kind of animation that you would want? You would want simple hacks. Say, for example, I'm sitting here, I want a graphics to pop in here and say a globe rotates, or a imagery comes and explains what I'm talking about. That's not at all difficult. Simple tools.
Suggest a software. Yeah, I would want to hear about some tools.
Yeah, see, for example, like, since we have a production, so we have, like, professional Adobe licenses, but then you don't necessarily need an Adobe license to kickstart, because you can mature into that. Or if you're willing to spend that a little bit, Adobe for an individual user is available at like 4-5 grand a month, but then you can get access to all the 20-30 softwares of the entire Adobe family. If not, there are free softwares, like you can try InShot, you can try Filmora. All these are free editing things that are available for you, and you can just shoot. And why I'm saying, if you're using a Windows machine, your Windows Photos allows you to chop and filter a few things, so you don't really have to depend on fanciful software. And what you're talking about, these imageries and overlays, you can use a free tool like a Canva. And in Canva, you can make all the templates that you want, export them as PNGs, and then snap them on top of your video content. and you're good to go. You have a very good professional looking stuff, and you can make use of all those free templates. So you need not be challenged by that. I don't know tech, I don't know design, I don't know, I'm not that very creative in terms of setting up the course. You don't have to be challenged with all of this. Use all these tools and you're great to go with that.
So I have an interesting question here from Sonal that you see on the screen now. Sonal is also a content creator. She runs one of the most successful wine academies and a wine business online. It's so you should check out sonalholland.com for that. But the question is about, do you recommend using teleprompters for pre-scripted videos or going spontaneous? And I'll add on to that question because it's one of the questions from my list. Now, it is not easy for everybody to be in front of the camera. You know, some people are gifted and confident naturally. So teleprompter, of course, is a hack. I've experimented with a lot of people, and I've seen people who fumble, who are not that confident, could just use words in front of them, and there are several softwares to do that. What is your take on this overall situation? You know, how can somebody who's not that confident do it, and how who are confident, people who are actually comfortable in front of the camera, should actually go about it?
Okay, personally, if you ask me, I'm a very spontaneous, loving person. Even with all the interviews with different clients and all that, I personally always ask them to go spontaneous as my first go, because spontaneous, all you need is a bit of a few rehearsals. All you have to do is know what you're talking about, make a few pointers. You don't have to write verbatim the entire script. You can write a few pointers, and yes, you need to start making I would say, love to your camera, because that piece of lens, you every time if you start focusing, like I have been spending most of my time behind the camera, but then if I have to do a course, I have to come in front of the camera and do it. And nothing better than actually practicing looking at the camera and talking it. You will have mistakes, you will fumble a few times. The first 20-30 videos that you're going to make are not going to look good, or maybe you feel good. After 6 months, you're going to look at it and say, hey, these are trash. That's fair enough. That's the learning curve. Whereas with a teleprompter, it's probably a quick fix. But even with a teleprompter, to go really well, you need to rehearse very well with the content. Otherwise, it's going to be like you're going to be looking here, your eyes still shift a little bit, and you're going to be a lot more static and rigid. You needs a lot more rehearsals, like the television news presenters who still get a lot of body language and still talk looking at the camera. For that also, you need to do the rehearsals. And if you can do that, then your teleprompter is good, because if you have tons and tons of textual content to be said, a teleprompter would help vis-a-vis being spontaneous. But then you need to rehearse, ensure you look more eased out, that the audience does not feel you're looking at a teleprompter. That's the magic. And how good you can practice and get there, it'll make the difference.
Oh, I get it, and I think that there is an add-on question here. If you've done this, you've captured the video, you've rehearsed, and those are some fantastic ideas. And I agree with you that a lot of times teleprompters kind of not let you get into the normal rhythm of how you would get excited about the content, or how you would bring the natural energy there. So in that case, if you produce the video, and your video is not exactly the way you would want it to be, I believe you could cover it up and enhance it with a bit of post-production. So you mentioned about a few softwares where you can bring things on screen and stuff. Now, what are the softwares that you would recommend on, let's say, mobile devices that would work well for post-production? Like you could touch up your appearance, maybe bring some kind of prompts on screen, and name them, if you could help us name them, both for iPhone, iOS devices, as well as Android and Windows, if you have a list like that.
Okay. See, what I would say is, if you're using a mobile phone, mobile phone is good if you want to do some one or two quick content on the fly that you want to post. You saw something, you want to quickly edit, then I recommend using a mobile device, because that's probably very easy for you to make content. Whereas if you're making proper training content, I would assume that you will have a lot more videos and content to be done. So with that kind of a scenario, it is only ideal that you do that over on a desktop or a laptop per se, because that will help you to chop and program these content better. Like I told you, in terms of making your overlays and free, always be safe to use something like a Canva, or go down to any kind of those free copyright free sound platforms, right from your NCS, or you're looking at Pixabay and sites like that, where you can get your free images, you can get your free sound, all copyright free. So you're not just randomly picking up somebody's YouTube content and putting it, but you're actually taking copyright free good content available for you. So you take those and make use of that. So it's not some kind of taking of somebody else's content and doing it. So these tools are going to be good. But in case if you have a lot of images, lot of editing to be done, I would seriously recommend get into something like an Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, because that will allow you to do a lot more. But then in case you're on a budget, you're looking for something friendly, please use, I would say, Canva outrightly and do that. And once you bought all this, you can use how are you going to capture this? Like you get into some platform like an OBS. Either you use an OBS for streaming, or you can even use it to capture, so that you don't have to do too much of editing work after. So a lot of this is happening while you're doing itself. So you don't have to then do too much of post-production work to do it. So you set all these things up and you're good to go, and you're pretty much ready in the live itself.
So could you, I know that you use your OBS quite a bit. Now, could you show something to us? I know that your space is all decked up with gadgets and all the equipment for shoots. So could we have a quick peek and see how you kind of do some of that?
I can do that. What I'll do is, let me see. Let me connect it to the phone here. In the meantime, what I'll do is, say, for example, I switch over to something like, say, I'm trying to set up a talk show right now. So I'm in the process. I'll show you quickly, like you're seeing me right now. Straight away, within a second, I just change over into. So it looks like it's a talk show.
Let me zoom it. Let me zoom it. Yeah. Nice,
so
nice.
Like TV, and then I want to change over to something else. So like this is like in my other cam. So when I'm talking, I like talk to you, like you can see that's like a different view that you get. Or
and how many cameras are there? How many cameras have you got set up?
Now one might wonder how many cameras are running right now in terms of the screen right now. So but then it's actually just two, one my DSLR and my webcam running in, and these two are doing all these tricks around for you. Or I set up something like this, a TV screen, and then I talk like this on my talk show. So hey, so I can put my guest in that small TV, and I said, hey, what do you think? What is your opinion on this? And so you would see that quickly you can actually do these kinds of things at just like the snap of a button. And and looked at me like I didn't do anything magical right now. All I had done was set up a few overlays. These overlays were set and timed, and these video, and there was no green screen here. There's no major VFX. You saw me doing all this live.
Wow. No, I have a relevant question here, exactly relevant to what you just mentioned. So this is by Dhiman. On the screen, you'll see the question. He's asking, when I shoot with multiple cameras, I find it challenging to sync the audio. So how do you do that? What's your take on that?
One quick fix that you can do is keep your master audio on one of the cameras. So I'm going to use this, and then syncing, you'll have to start all the cameras at one point of time. So you sync at one position, all the content is synced. You just only chop between the different videos, but your audio is synced. And you use one master audio to ensure, but you'll have to do the sync right at the beginning. So that's where in like movies, you'll see that people do a clap. So you don't have a clapboard. Say, for example, this camera and this camera is rolling right now. If I have to see this in one shot, what I do is, okay, take one, I'm going to start now. And then I start recording. So now what has happened, that clap sound, which is recorded in the audio file, is my sync. So I sync to that audio bit in both my cameras. and the rest is going to be in sync.
Wow, I never thought of it that way, but extremely useful suggestion. Now, there is another question here from Rohan, who's basically talking about how do I learn shooting videos for my courses. And I mean, I want to kind of highlight in here that I think you run a course on that. You also do a very popular program where you teach people how they can learn shooting within, is it a few hours? They make their own movie. If you could elaborate a bit on that program, and also tell Rohan what he could do apart from joining your course. I would highly recommend Rohan to join the course that you run on Out the Box Academy. But what are the ways to get him started? Like, how could he start his learning right away?
Oh, yes. One, get your basic, so don't get handicapped by whatever device that you have. In fact, in the course currently, if you see, I have a wide range of people starting from as somebody from a 16-year-old to about 55 years old who are in the process of doing their video, and media professional, then IT professional, all sorts of people mixed. So what we've seen and told them to do is, I push them for the first couple of weeks. I did not would not take them through any kind of a video, because the urge is always to like jump quickly, take the phone and start shooting. So we dig them through the fundamentals to understand what is preparation, what's planning, what's paperwork, and why it's important. So I drilled everybody to do the paperwork very clearly. So once they've done the paperwork, then it becomes smooth. Then we throw them all these hacks in terms of how they can use their camera, how they can play around with their lighting or the angles, and how they can go about taking it into post-production. And then elements like if they have to do an interview, how effectively they carry an interview, and all sorts of things like that. So this course is pretty much up for anybody at home. The overall duration, if you see, it's about 9-10 hours in terms of course. But then we break this. This is a series of bundle of 8-9 courses as such. And these courses have been split with a lot of working. So it's not typically that you sit for 9-10 hours and you go. So you actually go through one module, you do the certain exercises, like right now there are a bunch of people who are making a music video. They're trying to make their own profile video out there. And what I do with them is, it's just not a bunch of videos that they see on the platform. I interact with them on every week. That means they have a one-to-one session every week during a meetup time. Plus, I onboard them onto a special group in Telegram and on FB. And this is a private.
This is live? The session that you do, is it live on some platform that you?
Weekly once I do it live.
Okay, great. No, that is fantastic. And this brings me to another question that Mithi has just asked. She's asking what should be the ideal duration of a course video? Now, I understand your course is about 9 hours. That's huge and excellent value. I personally believe that I think that kind of content should actually make somebody from a novice to kind of a semi-expert or an expert video producer. What is the usual content duration for a lecture that you go with, and what's your recommendation to other course creators there?
Yes, I'm personally a great fan of micro learning. That's like learning in small pockets. So I have done, what I've done is I've broken this into lots of small modules and small videos. So typically you would get videos from a couple of minutes at the max, ranging about 7-8 minutes of duration in terms of a particular video. So when somebody is consuming, he's not consuming like one 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute lecture, but all he's seeing is he's seeing things very snackable, because today we are all a very YouTube, WhatsApp centric image generation, and we don't have the patience to look at any content. So we kind of jump between content. So is the thought process that I had, that even for learning, you're not going to be typically like a classroom. It's gone. It's no more about one classroom you sit for an entire day. So today learning is going to be on the go, because I tell people when they're making content to think of all these parameters. Where is this guy consuming this content? He could see a bit of it on his phone, then he sees a bit on the desktop, then the next day he syncs it up to the TV. So sometimes he's seeing a bit of the content horizontally, sometimes vertically. All that kind of stuff is happening for him in terms of the way he's consuming, where he's consuming, and how much he's consuming. So put a lot of thought. with that kind of a thought and thing, people want short, snackable type of content, yet there is depth in terms of learning. So quickly they learn. So you have to break your content into smaller pieces. And I feel that really works with a lot of people.
So that I completely agree with you. So Harish, one of the major questions that a lot of people ask is, and you've touched that in parts during the conversation. Uday has just asked this question, and Uday is asking, I cannot afford a DSLR or Adobe. So how do I kind of go about producing content that makes an impact? You'll see the question on the screen now. So what is your take on that?
I think this, you have one of these gadgets with you, Uday. I think go for this. I think you don't need anything. Like, I'll tell you the story. What happened for me with my DSLR? I was trying to start making the content. My DSLR conked. So even right now, what happens with my DSLR is my DSLR, the card is not picking, and I'm not in a position to service this. So bulk of the time, I was not able to use my DSLR. I somehow managed to get a webcam, because a webcam today you get for 8-10 grand, Logitech top end models. And I think that is pretty good to go in case you want to spend. If you don't want to spend, I think just stick to a mobile phone. And from your mobile phone can easily be made to use like a webcam, like apps like IV and there's tons of free apps online. You can use these apps and just turn your phone into a webcam, and that's it. You're very good to go. So you don't
I
have to
have
be.
a question, Harish. So I want to ask you, and this is a concern with a lot of people, how expensive the phone should be. It's a cliched question, but a lot of people think about it because see, you've got iPhones. You've got iPhones that come for 1 lakh rupees. So when we say mobile, the mobile doesn't exist anymore. It's like which mobile, which camera, what make. So what cost is a good cost, and how low can they start? It's an important aspect to be thought of.
I think today a 10-12 grand camera onwards, most of these smartphones, I think like a Xiaomi, which is like, I would say at about 10 grands onwards. Below that is a little bit of a challenge, but I would say 10 grands onwards, the cameras are pretty good to go. They shoot HD, they fairly adapt. And best important thing, very important tip that I would tell everybody to know, don't use this front camera, use this rear camera, because most of these phones are not, the front one is a lousy camera unless it's a special Oppo or one of
Yeah.
those models which is designed for a frontal camera.
The
Otherwise
selfie cameras.
yes, the selfie camera is bad, because most of them end up using the selfie camera because they won't look at themselves. And another important big goof up that they do is they look up at the screen and not the lens, because in the camera the lens is this tiny small little dot. How are you going to see that? So I'm saying focus here. Keep it, your content, hook this up into a small little tripod or stand, and you have an amazing great stuff to go ahead. So don't get bogged down by it has to be an iPhone or a Samsung. No, I use a OnePlus, and I think even a OnePlus is not even needed. I would say you can pretty well go with at a 10 grand plus smartphone. All of them can do a decent job. Yes, there are simple tricks that you need to know. Is your lighting right? Is your sound right? Are you sitting in the right environment? You need to focus on those basic homework criteria and filter that out, and that the phone can handle that rest.
Wow. Well, some brilliant suggestions out there. Excellent. So instructional content, and I think this would be my final question. We'll see if we have any other questions from the team. So if you are producing instructional content, and let's say tomorrow you want to look really good, and I get a lot of questions like this, that people come to me and say, I want to look as good as they look on masterclass. Is it important? The question is, when you're teaching, is it important to look like the way they look on TV or on masterclass, or is it okay to get the content right?
I think, see, if you want to do the top end of it, yes, you'll have to do a few, you will need a few more, you'll need probably like a masterclass. you will have to shoot at least multiple cameras. You need to have some DSLR. But then if you ask me, if you're starting out, you've not built your base set of audience, I'm saying unless you're really having a lot of money in hand, go ahead and buy it. If not, make the best use of resources. Yeah, people are not going to be bogged down by this. I'm telling repeatedly to everybody, because I'm saying don't get hassled by this, because the masterclass sets that benchmark of very Hollywoodish top end. Like personally, if you ask me, I would also love, like I get hassled sometimes. I used to get more hassled at times. Like, I know the frame quality is not so much top end. It's not. But I ask somebody else and somebody says, hey, wow, this looks damn good. So I'm like, oh, is this really good enough? So you need to, like, it took me time for me to get out of my movie making hangover of saying, you know what, we do only film quality, to come down to web camera and mobile camera. But I've realized this, you can make wonders using these tools. It's just that you need to know the finer nuances of doing it. And if you actually show that, like, the people have compared like an iPhone tagged with a Arri or a Red Alexa, and you say, like, if you actually can shoot well, both can give you very similar looking content.
Wow.
So it's about knowing the finer, the craft. I would say it's not the lens, it's not the heart. Like I always tell, even in my course, I said it's not the lens, it's what you see through the lens that matters, and how you see it.
Great one. That's a great one. No? That's for the wall. I love that one. So it's not the lens, it's what you see through the lens is what matters, man. Thanks. I have a final question, so I think we'll leave it at that. Now, somebody here, Priyanka, has asked, she wants to see your setup. If you could show how how you set up your cameras, and I mean, how she could set up a rear camera or something. And I think you've used a tripod there. Yes, so if you could show that, that would be awesome.
Let me just see if I can sync up my phone. No, my phone is.
So how are you trying to sync it up? You've connected your phone and all the cameras to OBS, and you're trying to kind of bring that all on screen.
Yes, that's what I've done. So what I've done is I've kept my one of these phone apps here, and
there is an addition to this question by Kalpana. Kalpana is asking, so after I set up the phone to shoot the video, how do I also bring the screen on when I'm recording it for a tutorial? Because I mean, probably she's trying to show what's on the screen as well as shoot herself. So I guess she'll have to set up the mobile camera to shoot her, and then also show the screen. Is that done by OBS, or how do you?
Yes, you can do that, because if you add another source, so what I'll do is I'll just my phone, instead of the phone cam, I think I'll switch over and I'll show my this camera.
Oh, we see you in the fancy TV again.
Okay, I'll show it in this, because that's set. So now you see this is my webcam.
We can see, but it's in the small TV. It's in the small TV. You'll have to.
Okay. I'll do one thing. I'll add.
I didn't realize you could do so much with the live videos. Actually, you could play with.
Actually, you can do that. All you do is take a.
We can't see you. Wait,
okay.
Yes.
On. So now you can see the full setup. So what I've done is I've hooked up 2-3 of my monitors here. So this is actually a bit of a jugaad work that I did. So I went and pulled out stuff. So I have one little ring light here, and you see behind on the wall are some acoustic panels that I had left over in one of the studio works. So I got them here, and they've not even been stuck. They've just been placed so that it's kind of cuts down the. And if you see, I've also done a lot of jugaad here. One box and some wooden bricks, and my DSLR is hooked here. And then, of course, this is my cam here. And then at the back, if you can, I can move around, and you can see I have a light kept at the back. That's kind of, and I have one light here. So that kind of.
What light is that on the right? What light was that you have on the right?
It's a square LED lights that you get in the market with the battery operated lights.
Oh, okay, okay, great, great.
like the Simpex and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
what I've done is I've kind of used these right now because it's a lot more easier to connect. And you will see there's a difference in terms of the quality. Now you see this is a webcam quality. Vis-a-vis I switch over, this is a DSLR
Ah,
quality.
wait, let me enlarge this. This is excellent. Yeah, and the DSLR is giving live feed into this relay. Is that right?
Yes, because actually I use a Canon, and the Canon has right now in the last month they've given a hack, so you don't need any external device. All you have to do is hook your Canon through a USB 3.0, and you're good to go.
You mean even the old Canons? So what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to understand, you mean
Yes,
like
yes,
a 70D or a 60D that got released like 4 5 years ago? You could now hook them up for a Zoom call.
yes. You can use them as a
This is
webcam.
awesome, man. I'm joining your course, Harish. But yeah, this is great. Yeah, amazing. So I didn't know that. I mean, we have two kind of just being there, and they. I was thinking of getting rid of them, but you've just kind of put them to use. I didn't know that, but thank you so much for that, man. Yeah.
You don't you lose a lot of those old gadgets, like for even for these OBS. I use the old iPad as a Stream Deck kind of a remote, so I can control
Ah,
the switches onto my iPad, and I don't have to even touch the OBS. So when I'm doing my live
wow.
show, I can just, like a remote, I can just touch and I'll just switch over from one camera to the other.
Super, man. You've just saved 3 devices in this call. This has been the most one of the most profitable call that I've done. This has been really interesting for me. So thank you so much. And it's been wonderful having you on board. It was great for me personally, and I'm sure people who've been watching have also benefited from the session a lot. I would recommend everybody to kind of go on, check out the Box Academy. So the website is outtheboxacademy dot, like, let me just type it on screen. It's academy.in. Is that right? That's the
.com,
that's the link.
.com.
Okay. So I'm just going to show it on the screen now. Is that right? Outtheboxacademy.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I would recommend everybody to check this out. And thank you so much, Harish. We actually took longer than we expected, but it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kiran. Pleasure being on your show today.
Thank you so much. Take care, man. Bye.
Ciao, bye.